afternoon, everyone. The topic of my paper is Women Attempters of Self-Incineration in India, Conceptualization of the Motives. Self-incineration refers to the intentional burning of the self, and it has been found that this is an extremely common method used to commit suicide in India, Sri Lanka, and few other Middle Eastern countries. It turns out that in India, women, especially those coming from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, make use of this method to commit suicide and to harm themselves. And men have been noticed to use self-incineration for political purposes. Now, there are certain gender-based patterns that have emerged. One with respect to, the intentions behind the act, women for personal reasons, men mostly political reasons. And in the Western context, it has been noticed how there have been men self-incinerating themselves because of mental health issues. Now, motives behind self-incineration, I have just found about 2 studies coming from Iran, and these were more done for statistical purposes than, with a clear intention to understand the psychological motives behind the act. The need for the study, no study done on understanding the motives behind self-incineration in the Indian context. Even though there are studies on motives, they are not purely from psychological perspective. Now, women constitute majority of the attempters of this act and mostly hail from lower socioeconomic background in India. So therefore, understanding these nuances is crucial to understand gender and economic factors associated with suffering. Now, understanding and conceptualizing the motives behind the act can also be a step forward for better preventive and rehabilitative work. The research methodology, the question is, how can the motives of women attempting self-incineration be conceptualized using select psychological perspective? The objective is aligned to the research question. These are my operational definitions. I'll draw your attention to the definition of self-incineration. It involves intentional burning of the self. It does not imply whether it is attempted with suicidal intentions or not, nor does it suggest if it is executed for political or personal causes. The term is also not suggestive of any particular outcome, neither does it presume that the attempters are aware of its ramifications. The research design, the study employs a qualitative research design for purely the purpose is explorative in nature, and also it's extremely nascent. So I use this as an opportunity to gain more ideas to take quantitative studies, forward. The data that I have received, it's secondary data. I have made use of case histories of women attempters of self-incineration collected by social workers. Sampling method has been judgment sampling method, and the sample size I have used love and case histories. Inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. Yeah. Data analysis, I have made use of content analysis, post which I have made use of certain psychological perspectives to make sense of the emerging concepts. Now, these are my results and discussions. I have about 12, so I'm wondering how to go about. Now, the first concept is that of intense guilt. So, believing that the degree of the wrongdoing must be proportional to the degree of punishment oneself inflicts. This was observed almost in 3 cases, wherein women suggested how they had cheated on their spouses and they believed they really have to punish themselves, not by any other method, but that which really makes them feel more pain. So this could be understood in terms of conscience and, the punishment concept that psychoanalytic perspective usually makes note of. The second concept that emerged was inability to match intense emotional experience with expression. So one concept that comes in handy is the defense mechanism of acting out, wherein individuals exhibit an extreme behavior in order to express a feeling or a thought that they otherwise cannot express. So one might argue that any attempt to harm oneself or suicide, the attempt in itself is acting out. I would say yes, definitely it is, but then self-incineration can be considered as even more intense an act of acting out. Now the third concept is intention to camouflage harming oneself. Thus I found it extremely interesting because women opined how the interpretative nature of the outcome of self-incineration. Say, for example, it can be easily dubbed as accident. One woman actually said how I thought that I could tell the doctors that a squirrel came and pushed my, stove, and therefore I burned myself, so that my family can claim for insurance. Yeah. So therefore, if this is the extent to which women think through about the methods to choose to harm themselves in the presence of an extreme pain, for all it could be the flight into reason called the defense mechanism of intellectualization. The fourth concept is feeling deadened, wherein Gestalt concept has this idea of desensitization, wherein you totally disregard your bodily pain. And a mild example could be we exposing ourselves to the sun. An extreme form could actually be burning oneself, because deep down you really feel deadened and nothing really matters anymore. Now the fifth concept is the inability to harm others, anger turned inwards. I think retroflexion could be at play, because women claimed how I wanted to burn my husband, but then who would take care of my children? So therefore I burnt myself. So an extreme anger towards others, but inability to act on it, might have prompted these women to turn their anger inwards and choose the exact same method to harm themselves, which they would have actually liked to harm others. So that's the fifth concept that emerged. The sixth concept is fearing others might burn them. So this was in the context of the case history revealed how the panchayats, who are the local political, the governing bodies, had threatened the girl that you marry someone, we are going to burn you. And the girl said, I don't want you to burn me, I know you will, so before that I'll burn myself. Yeah. So for all, the fear that others might do something to you, before that, you yourself might harm yourself using the exact method. The Gestalt approach also calls this to be another dimension of retroflexion itself. So one is doing something to yourself which you wish to do it to others. The other one is doing certain things to yourself which you think others might do to you. Now the seventh concept is the fire seen as a purifying agent. Now it's important to understand how these social workers have jotted down, so therefore it is interpretative. I understand that's also the limitation, but these have been the themes. Now in the Indian context, fire is considered to have the cleansing power. We have certain deities like Agni Deva, so therefore even the archetypal value of the fire cannot be neglected. And then the way I understand is the introjection might have happened. So introjection is nothing but uncritically accepting an idea that has been circulated around. So for all, years of being told that, fire is a cleansing agent, and in temples you do have, the fire being given to you by the pandits, and then you do, have your palm over. For all, because of these introjected ideas, women might have chosen fire to harm themselves. Now the copycat phenomena, it was seen how, especially in this place called Devanahalli, it's in the Kolar district of Karnataka, where I come from. There are few huts, and these social workers are of the opinion that one woman dies, within a very short span of time, even the other dies. So the more the similarity between someone who has harmed herself using this method, higher are the chances that there are also other women. And it's direct, Bandura's concept of social learning, that modeling that's playing out. Now the ninth, the concept that emerged was easy accessibility. Yeah, you think of a rope, a gun, or a poison, it may not be that accessible, but when it's the matter of, simple kerosene, and India, there are a lot many women from lower socioeconomic background who still use kerosene. So kerosene and matchstick is something so accessible. For all, that could be one of the reasons. The tentative language must be noted. That could be one of the reasons why there are more number of women self-incinerating themselves. Now, the 10th concept that emerged was to garner attention. Yeah, I mean, when I say to garner attention, let it not be mistaken for, histrionic traits. No. So instead, women simply understanding the visual appeal. For instance, one woman, the social worker has written down, she wanted to kill herself in the hut, but then she ran out and it seems she knocked, for neighbors to also come out because she wanted to show that, look, this is what my husband has done and I want to burn myself. So this could also be one of the reasons to garner attention. You take poison, you die out in your home, whereas you burn yourself, higher are the chances that people might look at you and they know your cause, political or personal. Now the concept 11, the last but one, is seeking congruency between life and method opted to end life. There were women, these social workers say, how they said, if I stab myself with the knife, what a big deal. I have lived even, a painful life. So choosing to harm themselves with such intense methods to just say, you know what, I have lived even miserable life. And when I am dying, I don't want an easy death. So seeking congruency between the life and the method opted could be one of the reasons. Now the next one, it's an indirect inference wherein I'm speaking about the influence of gender roles. It's indirect, meaning many women had burned themselves in the kitchen. One argument is, yes, it could be because kerosene and then the matchstick is there. But the belongingness that sometimes women feel to the kitchen, maybe they might have associated themselves with that area. And then sometimes many women have said how I'm not even let to cry in the living hall because someone will come and say, don't cry. So therefore they go to the kitchen and cry. And for all you know, these elements might have triggered intense responses. Now these are my results and discussions. The limitations, procedures that have been used by social workers to collect data in the institution, I cannot authenticate it. Now, the paper is an outcome of reflective propositions based on theoretical perspective. It definitely requires empirical validation. One of the major limitations of the study is that these data have come from secondary sources. Now, reading between the lines by the researcher might have its interpretative errors. I note that. And implications and conclusions, therapists can definitely gain an in-depth understanding of the possible psychological mechanisms determining the choice of methods to harm oneself. Now, results can be used for rehabilitative as well as preventive work. Now, further research on the topic from the primary sources is definitely needed. And my doctoral thesis with my guide, Dr. Shailja Shastri, is on this. Wherein I'm trying to conceptualize the motives using secondary and primary data. So the work is definitely being taken forward. Now further research to evolve integrative approach to conceptualizing the motives behind self-incineration is definitely needed because I simply feel this is so eclectic and it seems so piecemeal a fashion of interpretation that with more data, I think more integrative work can be done. So these are my key references and thank you so much.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Yes, ma'am.
It's common in Sri Lanka, but actually I think in Sri Lanka people commit suicide mostly by using insecticides and weedicides, and not by burning themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yes, ma'am.
Rare.
I'll
but
definitely go through the
is,
literature.
that has occurred during the past few years.
Ma'am, this is not to contradict you because I come from different place, but there were few research studies which pointed out that especially in eastern Sri Lanka, so in terms of the numbers taken, it felt that, so I'll definitely look into, the usage of insecticides as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Can you wait for the microphone, please?
Just to comment, the longest case series of burning self is from Sri Lanka, from the Battlefield General Hospital by Ganeshan.
Ganeshan, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.